He is responsible for the management and coordination of a portfolio of 56 PPP projects with a total development cost of 7 billion euros.
And high inflation and rising interest rates arising and resulting from this conflict constituted a major and significant challenge for Greece. To be honest, we have projects in many sectors. We have projects in road infrastructure, we have projects in food and accommodation, we have projects in broadband infrastructure, we have schools, we have dams, we have water supply networks and irrigation networks. We have a really broad sector that we implement the project.
Hello everyone, it's my pleasure to welcome you all for another episode of the Stakeholder Outreach Initiative by P3 World Council. In a pursuit of understanding the dynamics of global development and its impact on PPP projects across the world, we are interacting with global leaders across the world to understand how has the recent global developments, especially the COVID and the current development of the Russia-Ukraine war, has had an impact on PPP projects in different parts. And the country of focus today that we are going to discuss about is Greece. And my guest today is Mr. Nikos Sergis, who is the head of the PPP Unit, which comes under the Ministry of Development and Investments in Greece. So before I start my conversation, let me give you a brief introduction of Nikos. Nikos Sergis is the head of the PPP Unit at the General Secretariat of Private Investments and PPPs of the Ministry of Development and Investments in Greece, and he has been working in the PPP Unit for the last 10 years. He is responsible for the management and coordination of a portfolio of 56 PPP projects with a total development cost of 7 billion euros, 14 of which have already been signed, while the rest are in various stages of the tendering process. He was and is an active member in the majority of all these projects, which under his guidance have received numerous awards at Greek and European level. The reward for this systemic work brought Greece in the second place worldwide among 140 countries in the field of procurement of PPPs, according to the World Bank 2020 Benchmarking Infrastructure Development Report, and second worldwide among 81 countries in the field of procurement of PPPs, according to the Global Infrastructure Hub. So we have someone with us who has enormous experience of handling mega projects, and I'm sure we would have a lot of takeaways from our conversation today. So Nikos, welcome to the Stakeholder Outreach Initiative by P3 World Council.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Harsel. First of all, I would like to thank you as well for the invitation and the chance you are giving us in order to discuss and say some things about what we are going to do here in Greece, and of course, what we have achieved so far in the Greek PPP ecosystem. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Nikos. Well, as I just described, Nikos, that we've seen a lot of developments currently, especially in the geopolitical space. COVID is a past now, but I'm sure COVID must have had an impact on PPP ecosystem and the overall investments in your country. But however, the current latest development of this year, the Russia-Ukraine war, and the overall sentiment that is prevailing across, has it had an impact or any impact on the PPP projects in Greece?
Yeah. No, there is any doubt that we have some impacts as regards this conflict between the two countries. And, high inflation and rising interest rates arising and resulting from this conflict constituted a major and significant challenge for Greece, not only for Greece, but for most of the European countries as regards the economics and all this viability of the project. But when this issue took place here in the PPP unit, we had some discussion and we tried to think the mitigation measures in order to deal with it. So our first, let's say, option was to separate the project as regards the stage and the project each project has. So first of all, the first, for instance, scenario was the easier one. The project that were submitted here in the PPP unit for approval by the Interministerial Committee for the last, let's say, 2 or 3 months. So we have an updated cost estimation, we have updated financing terms. So there weren't any problem about rising rates and all this. So this exercise was really easy. The second scenario that we wanted to check was to the project that were submitted before this conflict. And right now we are in the phase of final bids, so the binding bids by the pre-selected bidders. In that place, we had and we did a revision of the cost estimation we had in the previous stage of the approval by the Interministerial Committee. We had a revision of the cost estimation, of course, a revision of the financing terms, alongside with a revised financial model in order to check if the viability of this project remains in the same page. Hopefully and fortunately, when we did this exercise, we had already from the initial approval some buffers as regards the cost and of course some financing terms in order to absorb this instability in the macroeconomic background. So many of our projects that were in this stage, we didn't retender it from the beginning. So it was about to lose enough time in order to go from the beginning as well. So we continue with this revised model, and then we had the expression and submission of final bids in many projects that all had as well a strong competition in the final phase, with 3 or 4 final bids in all of these projects. So we solved this as well for the project that were at this stage. The final scenario, and I think the most difficult, was to the project that were submitted the final bids before the conflict. Okay. And right now we are in the phase of the financial and commercial close. Fortunately, we didn't have any project in this stage, so we didn't have enough to do. But to be honest, Greece has faced a not very dissimilar case in the near past, when we have the onset of this sovereign crisis here in Greece. So many of our projects were at this stage exactly. What we did and what was really crucial in order to achieve this goal and sign these contracts, we tried to enable other financial instruments in order to bring the economics of the project in the same page. So we used financial instruments from the European Union, Jessica funding, in order to lower the interest rate that here in Greece was something like 10 to 11%. So not viable in order to go to the signing. So we enable this instrument in order to lower the interest rate with a long-term repayment period in order to bring the viability of the project again. So to sum up, I think there are some impacts, but here in Greece, we try to separate each project and the project of each project in order to deal with it and continue with the next step, and of course, the final goal, which is the signing of the contracts.
Okay. So what I understand, Nikos, is that you were well prepared and well planned with regards to approaching the PPP projects and seeing the impact the current developments have made on different parts of the world, actually, especially on investment project or capital projects. And I love the way you said about the 3 different phases of the projects, and that must have helped you gauge the impact and make the necessary adjustments. Nikos, in the reply that you gave, you mentioned about the challenge of inflation and interest rates. Now, inflation interest rate is something that is troubling all countries across the world, even in India, or be it Asia, be it Africa, be it Europe, everywhere it's been felt, like central bank are increasing the interest rates. So these are some of the challenges that, especially capital projects face. So my second question to you is, what are some of the challenges you see in the overall Greek PPP ecosystem?
Yeah, to be honest, and from my point of view, the major challenges that we have to deal with them right now are 4, let's say. First of all, just to mention that Greece has already developed innovative ways of financing, of blending financing of the project. So in the near past, we had a project that comprised EU funds alongside EU financing or financial instruments, and etc. So we enable multiple, let's say, options as regards the financial structure of the project. Right now, in many of our projects, we have already included the possibility of using EU funds from the Recovery Resilience Fund here in the European Union. So it's something like EU funding. But this fact has really strict milestones in order both to announce the preferred bidder, which is till the end of the next year, and the finalization and the completion of the construction till 2026. So we have this initiative in order to use some EU funds and lower the availability payments, the annual availability payment in the near future. But we have to run, because this is our main goal, to run in order to meet these milestones. This is a really serious challenge, because we have to achieve this and finally reach the next year in order to have the announcement of preferred bidder. So we have a lot of work to do and run as fast as we can.
Okay.
The second one is the timing, let's say. As you said before, we have the portfolio of PPPs is 56 projects, but 42 right now are under tender, or they are going to be tendered in the near weeks, let's say, in the coming weeks. So apart from these projects that use RRF funds, so we have these milestones as regards the completion of the tender procurement. And I think it's 10 to 15 projects that are in a really mature tender process. So we hope till the end of the next year to be in the final, let's say, stage of the procurement. The time has to do, but about next year, we will have, let's say, something 30, 35 projects that we will ask from the market in order to fully be in line with us. So what we did, and because I understand that this will be difficult, we have made so far many discussions with the market, I mean the investors or the contractor of the investors, designers, construction companies, operators, and of course, the banks, commercial from Greece and from abroad, in order to be totally in line with our pipeline, to let them know about our schedule about the PPPs, in order to be in the same page and have a successful outcome on this challenge. The third challenge that we are thinking right now has to do with a better maturity of the project from an initial level. Okay. To be honest, we don't have a serious problem on that, because I strongly believe that the project proposals that were submitted here in the PPP unit in the initial phase are quite enough mature, but we want to move a step forward and have a better maturity level as regards the pre-feasibility and feasibility studies. Okay. For that reason, we have already established a project preparation facility with the cooperation of EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction Development, in order to appoint some experienced consultants and have them in a specific framework in order to use them and have a more mature, let's say, initial technical maturity. The last but not least challenge that we want to deal has to do with the capacity building of the public authorities. And correct. Capacity building, I mean in the sector, in the side of the contract management. You know, Greece for many years, the only option in order to procure and to implement public infrastructure was a public work. So a design and construction contract in order to build the infrastructure. Till, let's say, during the last 10 years, we see a turn to the PPP, so a turn to the provision of services, let's say. That is that the public authorities and the personnel in the public authorities is not really experienced on how they can do the monitoring, what we say, the monitoring of the contract. This is our job in order to make some discussion and establish a mechanism in order to set the path in order to make them easier. Correct. This procedure and the mechanism to let them know about how to do. So this more or less are our main challenging for the PPP ecosystem here in Greece, at least in the near future.
Okay, all right. So you said about time, and then you spoke about the capacity building. Well, capacity building is something that is currently being seen as a challenge across many central PPP units across the world. I mean, in my interaction, I've seen this as one of the major challenges that every PPP unit or the public sector is dealing with. Well, as we just discussed, Nikos, that challenges are many, and what is important is, as a public sector entity, I mean the PPP unit, it is more important, to have the investor confidence. So what I want to ask you is, what are some of the steps that the government, or the PPP unit is taking to attract investments in the PPP ecosystem? Because I just read out you guys are doing a lot of projects, so I'm sure you must be doing something that is attracting a lot of investments. So can you highlight what are some of these major steps that you guys are taking?
Yeah. First of all, the PPP unit, of course, the Greek government believe in the importance of PPPs as a tool to deliver a public infrastructure project by mobilizing the private sector funds and striving to achieve an optimal risk sharing between the public sector and, of course, the private partner, while they're even better value for money project for the public sector and the citizen in general. Just to note, the competent authority for PPPs in Greece is the PPP unit here in the General Secretariat for Public-Private Investments and PPPs in the Ministry of Development and Investments. And since its establishment back in 2005, which the PPP was established, the PPPs unit serves a gatekeeper and advisor to the Interministerial Committee, as well as a source of technical advisor to the public authorities. So the foundation of all this framework was set back in 2005 with a really stable and flexible law in order to set the path, in order to do a good and successful PPP projects. Now, so the path and the legal framework was there from the beginning. This framework was set based on another international experience and countries that had already done this. So we set a path based on that. And till now, we have made some minor, let's say, amendments as regards our PPP law. And the purpose for that was in order to accelerate and simplify the implementation of PPP projects. Okay. For example, a recent law that was ratified, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, provides that all PPPs will be categorized as strategic investments. So as a result, they will benefit from a fast track and centralized licensing process in order for the public authorities and the private sector to have an easier procedure as regards the licensing and the other actions that they have to implement the project. Okay. Now, to sum up about that, I feel that the success of PPPs in Greece based on 3 major pillars. The first pillar has to do with the stable institutional framework. Correct. So we have a legal framework that is comprehensive, that is transparent, that is simple and stable. So we had set this foundation from the early beginning of our life. Furthermore, we have some procurement procedures that are in full accordance with European directives. So we have this, we have a strong competition. This is another pillar with 6 or 7 private parties that participate in the first phase of the declaration of interest, and 3 that comes to the final bid phase. So we have the competition both from the domestic market but for abroad. And last but not least was this initiative financial structure that we have set in our previous project, as I told you before. And this is a really major issue, mainly in countries that have fiscal constraints, as we did in the near past, in order to have and implement more projects in your pipeline in the near future. So this is the 3 main pillars that we have established in order to have successful procedure and successful process of the project, and of course, full cooperation with the public authority here in Greece in order to do that as fast as we can.
Okay, that's great to know. And one point I would like to highlight is what you just mentioned about fast tracking. That is something which is very crucial, because speed matters in the age that we're living in. If that speed is not there, along with the due diligence, that's where, most of the momentum gets lost, and, we don't see much of investments, getting attracted. So Nikos,
Of course.
yeah, getting back, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of projects with regards to the road sector, the ports, and, it's like a 7 billion portfolio is a big portfolio, like 55 projects. So would you like to, can you please highlight some of the, major projects, for a global audience or a global investors who are more keen to understand the developments in Greece? So what are some of the key projects that you would like to highlight?
Yeah. As you said, we have right now the portfolio has to do with 56 projects, 14 of which are already signed. So we are on the operational phase and has to do mainly with waste management projects and school buildings and broadband infrastructure. So this is the sign. These are the signed ones. And right now they are under tender procurement or are going to be tendered in the coming weeks. Another 42 with a total development cost of around 6.1 is the project that they are going to or are under tender procedure. To be honest, we have projects in many sectors. We have projects in road infrastructure. We have projects in student accommodation. We have projects in broadband infrastructure. We have schools. We have dams. We have water supply networks and irrigation networks. We have a really broad sector that we implement projects. If I can say what is the most promising, because you have to choose between your children, but if I would say that, I would suggest the water sector. The water sector is something that right now is very crucial. From the discussions I have with the market, and I mean the investors and the banks, and of course all the contractors, they are eligible in many of the stakeholders. So they want this type of project in order to participate and of course sign if they can. So this water supply and irrigation that we have a lot, we have right now 5 that is already approved. They are already approved, and we have a pipeline of another 3 in the near future. So I think it's a sector that is really promising, really challenging, because we have to do the work from scratch. From all the other sectors, we have done the work before, so we have a template and then something that is drafted before. So we have a standardization on this type of documents. In this sector, we have already appointed experienced consultants in order to help us in order to do this job as well. And I believe that this is the most, let's say, promising sector right now in Greece as regards the PPP ecosystem. Okay, so what you just said is the water sector, you mean to say, is the most promising one, which has a lot of active projects. Along with that, the road sector and the ports and the other school sector. So what I understand, Nikos, is, there's a lot of buzz I can see in Greece when it comes to PPP projects. And that's what the message we want to give to our global audience as well, and to the PPP community, that there's a lot to learn from how Greece is fast tracking its PPP ecosystem. Thank you, Nikos. Thank you for taking time out from your busy schedule and sharing your views with us. It is indeed quite valuable for the entire PPP community across the world. Thank you, Harald. It was my pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.